My wife came home from a trip, heard I spent the weekend comforting her son, and asked, "Do you think you can be a proper father figure for once in your life?" When I finally opened up and said I loved him like my own, she blocked the fridge and said, "Wouldn't want you to be careless with that too." I just stared at her. That was 3 weeks ago. This morning, she sat in him room, holding a crayon drawing and didn't speak for over an hour. My wife came home from a trip, heard I spent the weekend comforting her son, and asked, "Do you think you can be a proper father figure for once in your life?" When I finally opened up and said I loved him like my own, she blocked the fridge and said, "Wouldn't want you to be careless with that too." I just stared at her. That was 3 weeks ago. This morning, she sat in his room holding a crayon drawing and didn't speak for over an hour. If she wants to complain about my efforts, he can stay with someone else. I've never been a person who wanted children in the first place. I found out I couldn't have kids when I was really young because of a health issue, and I accepted it a long time ago without much trouble. I have been married to my wife for 3 years now and absolutely adore her son. He's a literal ray of sunshine and joy, and she has been honest with me from day one that her son will always be her first priority, something that I actually admired about her. I also understood that she will never be able to leave him with his father because he has a drinking problem that can lead to violence. However, recently she started being very judgmental of everything me and her son do together. Her son is now 7 years old, and a few months ago fell during practice and fractured his arm. She was very worried about him, and I was too, but she has always been very protective of him. When I told her that she should relax, he'll be all right, and that she can't control every aspect of his life as a way to comfort her, she told me that she'll never be someone like my mother, something that really hurt me, but I let it slide. After this incident, she started throwing comments here and there about how I'm being careless with him, how I'm not fit to be around him, or how I sometimes act so childish with him. A few days ago, I was going to pick him up from school, but I was 15 minutes late due to a holdup at work while she was out on a business trip. I felt that he was upset about waiting this long because he never had to wait this long before, but he didn't complain. I just felt it. He was not as upbeat as he usually was. So I decided to cancel my plans for the weekend and spend some time with him, with the promise that all studies would be done on Sunday, which almost always was the usual case. We had what he called guys only day till mom comes home, went shopping, ate out, had a Disney marathon, and spent some time by the backyard pool. That was over the course of 2 days till my wife came back home. I told her what we did over the few days she was away, which I have of course mentioned over the phone when we talked, or her son mentioned when she called him. However, her reaction was not what I expected one bit. Her first words to me were, "Do you think you can be a proper father figure for once in your life?" A sentence that till now still bothers me and echoes in my head. We had a big argument which ended with me saying that if she doesn't see me as a proper father figure to her son, she should send him to live with his real father. I still feel bad about saying this, and I know that it would upset me to no end if she actually separated him from me, because I have honestly grown very attached to him. However, still, I do not know if there is something I am not seeing, or if there is something I failed to understand. Maybe I do not have the instinct to father a child, or I do not see it as big of a responsibility as it should be. I just do not understand. The silence that followed my words was deafening. Jenna stood in the doorway, her suitcase still in hand, staring at me like I just slapped her across the face. Ethan's laughter drifted in from the backyard where he was still playing by the pool, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside. I watched her knuckles turn white as she gripped the suitcase handle tighter. She set it down slowly, deliberately, like she was trying to control every movement. The vein in her temple pulsed visibly as she walked past me into the kitchen without another word. I followed her, my hands shaking slightly as I gripped the counter. She opened the refrigerator, pulled out a water bottle, and drank half of it in one long gulp. When she finally turned to face me, her eyes were cold in a way I'd never seen before. "You think this is a joke?" Her voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the anger simmering beneath. "You think taking care of my son is something you can just play at when it's convenient?" I felt my own anger rising to match hers. I canceled my entire weekend to spend time with him because he seemed upset. How was that playing? She slammed the water bottle on the counter, making me jump. "You were late picking him up. 15 minutes he sat there waiting, wondering where you were." "I was at work. I called the school to let them know I'd be a few minutes late. He was perfectly safe in the office with the staff. That's not the point." She ran her hands through her hair, pacing now. "You don't get it. You've never gotten it. Being a parent means being reliable, being there, not just when it's fun or when you feel like it." The accusations stung more than I wanted to admit. I thought about all the school pickups I'd done, the homework sessions, the bedtime stories when she was working late. I've been there for him every single day for 3 years. Have you? She stopped pacing to face me directly. "Or have you just been going through the motions playing house?" Ethan's voice called from outside, asking if he could have a juice box. I moved automatically to get one from the fridge, but Jenna blocked my path. "I'll get it," she said. "Wouldn't want you to be careless with that too." I stepped back, feeling like I'd been punched. She grabbed the juice box and headed outside. Through the window, I watched her kneel beside Ethan, checking him over like he might have sustained some terrible injury in the 2 days she'd been gone. He showed her his new bracelet from our shopping trip, and I saw her jaw tighten. When she came back inside, she was carrying Ethan's new clothes and toys from our shopping shopping spree. She set them on the counter with exaggerated care. Buying his affection now? She asked, not looking at me. It was a few outfits and a stuffed animal. He needed new school clothes anyway. He has plenty of clothes. Jenna, what is this really about? I demanded, my voice cracking slightly. Ever since his arm healed, you've been finding fault with everything I do. I can't breathe around him without you criticizing me. She whirled around to face me. You want to know what this is about? It's about the fact that you told me to relax when my son broke his arm like it was nothing, like he was nothing. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I was trying to comfort you. You were spiraling, blaming yourself for something that was just an accident. Accidents happen when people aren't paying attention, she shot back. When they're careless, when they think they know better than the person who's been protecting that little boy since the day he was born. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, but refused to let them fall. I have never been careless with Ethan. Never. Really? She pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. What about the time you let him stay up until 10 p.m.? On a school night watching movies? Or when you gave him ice cream for breakfast because he asked nicely? Or when you took him to the park without sunscreen? The movie night was a special occasion for his good report card, which you agreed to. The ice cream was on a Saturday and it was yogurt with fruit, and I forgot the sunscreen once. Realized it within 5 minutes and we went straight home to get it. Excuses, she muttered, shoving her phone back in her pocket. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in his swim trunks with a towel wrapped around his shoulders. Mommy, come see the picture I drew of our weekend. Jenna's entire demeanor shifted instantly. Her face softened and she smiled at him. Of course, sweetheart. Go get changed first and then you can show me. He scampered off and the mask dropped immediately. She turned back to me and the coldness returned. This is exactly what I mean, she said. You let him swim without changing for hours. He could catch a cold. It's 85 degrees outside, Jenna. He's been in and out of the pool all day, drying off in between. You don't know what could happen. You don't think about consequences. I stared at her, really looking at her for the first time in months. The dark circles under her eyes. The way her shoulders never fully relaxed anymore. The constant checking of her phone when Ethan wasn't in sight. This wasn't about me at all. What did he do to you? I asked quietly. She froze. What are you talking about? Your ex? What did he do that makes you think everyone is going to hurt Ethan? Her face went pale, then flushed red. Don't you dare bring him into this. This has nothing to do with him. Doesn't it? You've been acting like I'm going to suddenly become negligent or dangerous, like I'm going to wake up one day and decide to hurt the little boy I love like my own son. You don't know what you're talking about, she said through gritted teeth. Then explain it to me. Help me understand why the man who's been raising your son for 3 years is suddenly unfit in your eyes. She opened her mouth and closed it. Ethan's footsteps echoed down the hallway, and we both automatically stepped apart, trying to compose ourselves. He bounced into the kitchen wearing his favorite pajamas, the ones with dinosaurs that I'd bought him last Christmas. In his hands was a piece of paper covered in colorful crayon drawing. Look, he exclaimed, holding it up for both of us to see. I drew our weekend. There's me and Sam at the store, and here we are eating pizza, and this is us watching Frozen, and here's the pool. My heart clenched at the pure joy in his artwork. Stick figures of us holding hands, big smiles on our faces, hearts floating around us. At the bottom, in his careful 7-year-old handwriting, he'd written, "The best weekend ever." Jenna took the picture, her hands trembling slightly. It's beautiful, baby. Why don't you go put it on the fridge? He grabbed magnets and carefully positioned his masterpiece in the center of the refrigerator door. Then he turned and hugged Jenna tightly. I missed you, Mommy, but Sam made it super fun. He said we could do it again next time you go away. I saw Jenna's jaw clench at his words. Ethan didn't notice, already moving to hug me too. Thank you for the best weekend, he whispered in my ear, and I had to blink back tears. You're welcome, buddy. Why don't you go brush your teeth and pick out a bedtime story? I'll be there in a minute. He skipped off, humming the Frozen soundtrack. The moment he was out of earshot, Jenna turned on me again. You see, you're making promises you can't keep. Setting expectations? What expectations? That I'll spend time with him when you're away. That's what I'm supposed to do. No, she said firmly. What you're supposed to do is follow the routine, keep him safe, not turn everything into a party. He's 7 years old. He's allowed to have fun. Fun. She laughed bitterly. You think this is about fun? His father thought everything should be fun too, right up until he forgot to pick him up from daycare because he was having too much fun at a bar. The words hung in the air between us. Finally, a crack in the wall she'd built. I'm not him, I said softly. I know that, she snapped. But her voice lacked conviction. Do you? Because you've been treating me like I'm one drink away from abandoning Ethan at school. She flinched at my words. That's not I don't. Sam? Ethan's voice called from his room. I picked 3 stories. 3? I called back, my voice automatically shifting to playful dad mode. That's too many, silly boy. Please, Sam, please. His giggles echoed down the hall. We'll see, I said, then looked at Jenna. I'll put him to bed tonight, she said. We always do it together when you're home, I reminded her. Not tonight. The dismissal was clear. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and headed to our bedroom. I could hear her in Ethan's room, her voice gentle as she negotiated down to 2 stories. His delighted laughter made my chest ache. I sat on our bed, still in the clothes I'd worn to the pool, chlorine scenting the air around me. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend asking asking how the weekend went. I stared at it, not knowing how to answer. How could I explain that I'd spent 2 perfect days with Ethan, only to have his mother come home and act like I'd committed some terrible crime? How could I describe the way she looked at me now, like I was a threat instead of her partner? I heard her reading, her voice carrying down the hall. Ethan interrupted frequently with questions and comments, and she answered each one patiently. This was the Jenna I'd fallen in love with, the devoted mother who would move mountains for her son. But somewhere along the way, that devotion had twisted into something else. Fear, control, an inability to trust anyone, including me. My phone rang, and I quickly silenced it. My brother's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to talk to anyone about what was happening. How could I explain that my marriage was falling apart over a weekend of Disney movies and shopping? Jenna's footsteps approached, and I quickly changed into my own pajamas. She entered the bedroom, closing the door behind her with exaggerated quiet. "He's asleep," she said unnecessarily. "Good." We moved around each other like strangers, getting ready for bed in silence. When we finally lay down, the space between us felt like an ocean. "I know you love him," she said suddenly in the darkness. I turned to face her back. "Then why are you treating me like I don't?" "Because love isn't enough," she said, her voice thick with something I couldn't identify. "His father loved him too. Said it all the time. Didn't stop him from leaving Ethan in a hot car while he ran into the liquor store. Didn't stop him from passing out while Ethan was in the bath. Love doesn't mean anything without responsibility." The pieces were falling into place now. How old was Ethan when these things happened? 4. He was 4. Her voice cracked slightly. He could have died multiple times because someone who claimed to love him couldn't be bothered to pay attention. I reached out tentatively, placing my hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away, but she didn't turn toward me either. "I'm sorry that happened," I said. "I'm sorry Ethan went through that, and I'm sorry you had to deal with it. But Jenna, I'm not him. I've never neglected Ethan. I never would." "You were late," she said, and I heard the fear beneath the accusation. "By 15 minutes, with the school fully aware and Ethan safely supervised. That's not the same thing. She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, I can't go through it again. I can't get another call saying something happened to him because someone wasn't paying attention." "You won't," I promised. "Jenna, look at me." She slowly rolled over, and in the dim light from the hallway, I could see tears on her face. This strong, protective woman was crying, and it broke my heart. "I need you to hear me," I said. "I would die before I let anything happen to Ethan. He's not just your son anymore, he's mine too. Maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters. And I need you to trust me with him or this isn't going to work." She closed her eyes. "I want to. God, I want to. But every time something small happens, all I can think about is what could go wrong, what almost went wrong before." "Then we need help," I said. "Professional help, because you can't live like this, and neither can Ethan and I." Her eyes snapped open. "You think I'm crazy?" "I think you're traumatized," I corrected. "And I think you're so scared of Ethan getting hurt that you're pushing away the people who love him most." She was quiet again, processing. Finally, she said, "He was so happy this weekend. I could hear it in his voice when we talked on the phone." "He was," I agreed. "And he can be that happy all the time if you let him. If you let us." "I don't know how," she admitted, and it was the most honest thing she'd said in months. "Then we figure it out together with help. But Jenna, you have to stop treating me like the enemy. I'm on your side. I'm on Ethan's side. We're supposed to be a team." She reached out, taking my hand. "I'm sorry about what I said earlier. You are a good father figure to him, better than I had any right to hope for." The apology helped, but I knew it wasn't enough. One sorry wouldn't undo months of criticism and mistrust. "I need you to show me," I said. "Not just say it. I need you to actually trust me with him." She squeezed my hand. "I'll try. I'll look into therapy. For me, maybe for us." "Okay," I said, squeezing back. "That's a start." We lay there in the dark, hands clasped between us. It wasn't fixed, not by a long shot, but it was a beginning. "He really drew a picture of your weekend?" she asked after a while. "He did, with hearts and everything." "I'm glad," she said, and sounded like she meant it. "I'm glad he has you." I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that this was the turning point we needed. But I knew it would take more than one conversation to undo the damage that had been building. Tomorrow I would research therapists. Tomorrow I would have to figure out how to help my wife heal from wounds I hadn't even known existed. Tomorrow we would have to start the hard work of rebuilding trust. But tonight I held her hand and hoped it would be enough. The next morning arrived too quickly. I woke to find Jenna already gone from bed, the sheets on her side cold. Through the bedroom door, I could hear her in the kitchen with Ethan, their morning routine proceeding as if last night's conversation had never happened. I pulled on my robe and made my way to the kitchen where Ethan sat at the breakfast table working on a bowl of cereal while Jenna packed his lunch with military precision. She glanced up when I entered but didn't meet my eyes. "Morning, Sam," Ethan chirped, milk dripping from his spoon. "Mommy's making my special sandwich today." I forced a smile and kissed the top of his head. "That's wonderful, buddy." Jenna continued assembling the sandwich, each component placed with careful attention. 2 slices of whole wheat bread, exactly 1 TSP of peanut butter, measured and spread evenly, 1 TBSP of strawberry jam, organic only, the crusts cut off in perfectly straight lines, everything wrapped in wax paper, not plastic, because plastic could contain chemicals. I reached for the coffee pot and our hands almost touched. She pulled back like she'd been burned burned. I already made Ethan's lunch, she said, her tone neutral but firm. I can see that, I replied, pouring my coffee. I was just getting caffeine. Ethan, oblivious to the tension, continued chattering about his upcoming show and tell. He wanted to bring the stuffed elephant we bought during our shopping trip. Jenna's jaw tightened at the mention. Actually, sweetheart, she interjected, why don't you bring your rock collection instead? Remember how we organized them by type? Ethan's face fell slightly. But I really want to show everyone Ellie. The rocks are educational, Jenna said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Mrs. Peterson will appreciate that more. I watched Ethan nod reluctantly, his excitement dimming. The bright, bubbly child from our weekend was already fading back into the careful, compliant son Jenna seemed to prefer. After Jenna left to drive Ethan to school, a task she'd taken over completely since our argument, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop searching for therapists. The list was overwhelming. Marriage counselors, family therapists, specialists in trauma and anxiety. I bookmarked several, planning to call during my lunch break. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. Haven't heard from you in days. Everything okay? I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Everything was not okay. But how could I explain that my wife had turned our happy home into a minefield of unspoken accusations? Before I could respond, another text appeared, this time from Jenna. Picking Ethan up today. Don't worry about it. The dismissal stung. She'd effectively cut me out of the school routine entirely. I typed back, I'm happy to pick him up. My schedule is clear. Already arranged my afternoon around it, came her immediate response. I set the phone down, frustration building. This wasn't showing trust. This was the opposite. She was systematically removing me from Ethan's daily life, all while claiming she knew I loved him. At work, I struggled to focus. My colleague Catherine noticed my distraction during our morning meeting. You seem off today, she said afterward, cornering me by the coffee machine. Everything all right at home? Catherine had 3 kids of her own and had been through a divorce. If anyone might understand, it would be her. Can I ask you something? I said, glancing around to make sure we were alone. When you were going through your divorce, did your ex ever question your parenting? Her expression softened. Constantly. He picked apart everything I did. Too strict, too lenient, too involved, not involved enough. Nothing was ever right. How did you handle it? Therapy, she said simply. Individual and couples. Though the couples part didn't save the marriage, it helped me understand that his criticism came from his own fears, not my failures. I nodded, feeling slightly less alone. I'm looking into therapists now. Good. And Sam? She touched my arm gently. Don't let her make you doubt yourself. I've seen you with Ethan at company picnics. You're wonderful with him. Her words brought tears to my eyes. It had been so long since anyone had validated my relationship with Ethan. The rest of the workday crawled by. I made calls to 3 therapists during lunch, managing to schedule a consultation with one who specialized in blended families and trauma. The earliest appointment was 2 weeks away, but I took it. I texted Jenna about the appointment. Found a therapist who specializes in family dynamics. Can you do Thursday the 18th at 6 p.m.? Her response took an hour. I'll have to check. Ethan has practice. But it's after practice, I replied, having already checked his schedule. We'll see. The non-commitment frustrated me, but I booked it anyway. If she wouldn't go, I'd start alone. That afternoon, I arrived home to find Jenna and Ethan already there. Ethan was at the kitchen table doing homework while Jenna supervised, correcting his pencil grip, reminding him about proper posture, checking each answer twice. Hi, buddy, I said, entering carefully. How was show and tell? Ethan glanced at his mother before answering. Good. Everyone liked my rocks. That's wonderful, I said, though his subdued tone suggested otherwise. Sam, he needs to focus, Jenna said without looking up. Math requires concentration. I retreated to the living room, feeling like an intruder in my own home. Through the doorway, I watched them work. Ethan would occasionally look my way, offering small smiles that I returned, but Jenna's presence kept him focused on his worksheets. When homework was complete, Ethan asked if he could play in the backyard for 30 minutes. Jenna agreed, but stay where I can see you from the window. Ethan nodded and headed outside. I followed Jenna into the kitchen as she began dinner preparation. I booked a therapy appointment, I said, trying to sound casual. Dr. Benjamin Lee. He comes highly recommended. She measured rice with precise movements. I told you I need to check my schedule. Jenna, you said you'd try. This is trying. I am trying, she said, her voice tight. I'm trying to keep Ethan safe and maintain his routine and make sure he has everything he needs. He needs a family that functions, I countered. He needs parents who trust each other. She finally looked at me, and the exhaustion in her eyes was overwhelming. I don't know how to do that anymore. That's why we need help. Ethan's laughter drifted in from outside. He was playing with the neighbor's cat that often wandered into our yard. Jenna immediately went to the window. He shouldn't be touching stray animals, she muttered. It's Mr. Peterson's cat. He pets him all the time. Animals carry diseases. They can scratch or bite without warning. I watched her grip the counter, knuckles white with tension. This wasn't about the cat. This was about control slipping away, about dangers she couldn't predict or prevent. Jenna, I said gently, he's just petting a cat. He's safe. You don't know that, she snapped. You can't know that. Nobody can predict when something will go wrong. Ethan must have sensed her watching because he looked up and waved. Jenna forced a smile and waved back, but the moment he returned to playing, evening, her face fell back into lines of worry. Dinner was a quiet affair. Jenna had prepared chicken, steamed vegetables, and brown rice. Nutritious, balanced, boring. Ethan pushed his food around, clearly missing the more adventurous meals we used to make together. "Can we have tacos tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. "We had Mexican food this weekend," Jenna said. "Too much spicy food isn't good for your stomach." "It wasn't that spicy," Ethan protested mildly. "Sam asked them to make it mild." Jenna's fork paused midway to her mouth. "I'm sure he did, but we need to stick to the meal plan." I bit back my response. We'd never had a meal plan before. This was new, another way to maintain control. After dinner, Ethan asked if we could watch a movie together. "It's a school night," Jenna said automatically. "Just a short one?" Ethan pleaded. "We used to watch movies on Wednesdays sometimes." "That was before," Jenna said, then caught herself. "You need proper sleep for school." Ethan's shoulders slumped. "Okay, Mommy." I couldn't stand the disappointment in his voice. "How about I read you an extra story at bedtime instead?" Ethan brightened slightly, but Jenna intervened. "One story. Consistency is important." The evening routine proceeded with mechanical precision. Bath time at exactly 7:30, lasting no more than 15 minutes. Teeth brushing for 2 minutes. Jenna timing it on her phone. One story, no negotiations for more. Lights out at 8:15. I kissed Ethan goodnight, whispering, "Sweet dreams, buddy." He hugged me extra tight. "I love you, Sam. I love you too." Jenna watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. After Ethan's door was closed, she turned to me. "We need to talk about boundaries." I followed her to the living room, bracing myself. "You can't undermine me in front of him," she began, offering extra stories when I've already said one, bringing up activities that go against the routine. "I'm not undermining you. I'm trying to make him happy. Happy isn't the goal. Safe is the goal. He can be both, can he?" Her voice rose slightly. "Was Ethan's father making him happy when he let him eat candy for dinner? Was he making him happy when he let him stay up all night watching TV instead of going to school? I'm not suggesting anything like that, and you know it. It starts small," she insisted. "Little indulgences, bending rules, making exceptions. Before you know it, structure falls apart completely." I stared at her, recognizing the fear, but frustrated by its application. "Jenna, there's a huge difference between reading an extra story and the neglect you're describing. Is there? Where's the line? Who decides what's harmless and what's dangerous? We do together like partners." She shook her head. "I can't take that risk." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. She couldn't take the risk of trusting me, of treating me as an equal parent to Ethan. "Then what am I doing here?" I asked quietly. "If you can't trust me with Ethan, if you're going to question every interaction we have, what's my role in this family?" She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was strained. "I don't know." The honesty was brutal. I felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. "I made an appointment with the therapist," I said. "I'm going with or without you because I can't live like this, and Ethan shouldn't have to either." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Look at him, Jenna. Really look at him. He's walking on eggshells, afraid to express preferences, dimming himself to fit your anxiety. That's not healthy." "He's fine," she said defensively. "He's 7 years old and already learning to make himself smaller to avoid upsetting you. That's not fine." She stood abruptly. "I'm protecting him. You're suffocating him and me." She left the room without another word. I heard the bedroom door close. Not quite a slam, but close enough. I remained on the couch processing everything. The happy family we'd built over 3 years was crumbling, and I didn't know how to stop it. Every attempt to reach Jenna hit the wall of her fear. Every moment of joy with Ethan was tainted by her disapproval. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan's teacher. "Hi, Mr. Collins. Just wanted to check in." Ethan seemed a bit subdued during show and tell today. He mentioned wanting to bring a stuffed animal, but bringing rocks instead. "Everything okay at home?" Even his teacher had noticed. I typed back, "Thank you for checking. We're working through some adjustments at home. Please let me know if you notice anything else concerning." Of course. Ethan's such a bright light. Hate to see him dimmed. Let me know if you need anything. A bright light. That's what Ethan was and what he was losing. The next few days followed the same pattern. Jenna maintained rigid control over every aspect of Ethan's routine. I existed on the periphery, allowed to participate only within her strict parameters. Ethan grew quieter, more compliant, less like a joyful child who'd splashed in the pool just days ago. On Saturday, I woke to find Jenna already up, creating a detailed schedule for the weekend. 9 a.m. breakfast, 9:30 a.m. room cleaning, 10 a.m. educational activities, 11 a.m. outdoor time supervised, 12 p.m. lunch. "Jenna," I interrupted, "it's Saturday. Can't we just see how the day goes?" She didn't look up from her list. "Structure is important. Children thrive on routine. Children also need spontaneity, fun, the freedom to be kids." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that—" She stopped herself, but I knew how the sentence ended. The kind of thinking that led to negligence, to danger, to Ethan getting hurt. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas. "Morning." "Good morning, buddy," I said. "What would you like for breakfast?" He glanced at Jenna. "Whatever Mommy planned is fine." My heart broke a little more. This wasn't the Ethan who used to bounce into the kitchen requesting pancakes shaped like dinosaurs or French toast with extra cinnamon. "Oatmeal with fresh fruit," Jenna announced. "Nutritious and filling." Ethan nodded obediently and took his seat at the table. I watched him eat mechanically. None of his usual chatter about dreams or plans for the day. "I was thinking," I ventured, ventured carefully. Maybe we could go to the farmer's market today. Ethan loves looking at all the flowers and trying the samples. We have errands to run, Jenna said. Grocery shopping, dry cleaning, car wash. The farmer's market isn't on the list. Couldn't we add it? It's beautiful outside. Ethan perked up slightly. The flower lady said she'd have sunflowers this week. Remember, Sam? You said we could get some for my room. I remembered. During our guys' weekend, we'd driven past the farmer's market, and Ethan had pressed his face against the car window, admiring the bright blooms. Sunflowers drop pollen, Jenna said. It could trigger allergies. Ethan doesn't have allergies, I pointed out. That we know of. Allergies can develop at any time. Ethan's shoulders slumped. It's okay. I don't need sunflowers. The defeat in his voice sparked something in me. Yes, you do. Every little boy needs flowers in his room if he wants them. Jenna's spoon clattered against her bowl. Sam, what are we really going to deny him sunflowers because of theoretical allergies? It's not about the flowers. No, it's about control. It's about fear. It's about you being so terrified of something happening to Ethan that you're preventing him from living. Ethan's eyes went wide, darting between us. I immediately regretted raising my voice. Ethan, buddy, why don't you go get dressed? I suggested gently. Pick out something you like. He fled the kitchen and Jenna turned on me. How dare you undermine me like that in front of him? How dare you turn him into a shadow of himself because of your anxiety? I'm keeping him safe. From what? Sunflowers, happiness, me? She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand. You can't understand. You've never had to pick up your child from the police station because his father forgot he existed. You've never had to rush to the emergency room because he was left unsupervised and got into the cleaning supplies. You've never had to explain to a 4-year-old why daddy loves his bottle more than his son. The pain in her voice was raw, real, but so was my frustration. No, I haven't, I agreed. But I'm not him. I'm here every day loving Ethan and trying to give him a normal childhood, and you're punishing both of us for someone else's failures. I'm protecting. You're projecting, I interrupted. You're so caught up in what happened before that you can't see what's happening now. Ethan is disappearing, Jenna. The bright, curious, joyful child I met 3 years ago is fading away, and you're so focused on keeping him safe that you don't even notice. She stared at me, jaw clenched. If you don't like how I parent my son, our son, I corrected firmly. You asked me to be his father. You can't take that back when it's inconvenient. I never said, you say it every day. Every time you override my decisions, question my judgment, or cut me out of his routine. You want me to be his father when it suits you, and a babysitter when it doesn't. Ethan's small voice interrupted us. Are you fighting because of me? We both turned to find him in the doorway, dressed in the bright yellow shirt I'd bought him, but hadn't seen him wear since our shopping trip. His eyes were filled with tears. No, buddy, I said immediately, moving toward him. Never because of you. But Jenna was already there, kneeling beside him. Everything's fine, baby. Adult conversations sometimes sound bigger than they are. I don't want you to fight, he whispered. I'll be good. I don't need sunflowers. My heart shattered. This 7-year-old child was trying to manage our emotions, make himself smaller to keep the peace. Ethan, I said gently, sitting on the floor beside them, you don't need to be good for us to not fight. That's not your job. Jenna shot me a warning look, but I continued. Your job is to be 7, to want sunflowers and dinosaurs and movie nights, to laugh and play and sometimes make messes. That's what children do. But mommy says structure is important, Ethan said, looking between us uncertainly. Structure is important, I agreed, but so is joy. And lately, I think we've forgotten about the joy part. Jenna stood, lifting Ethan with her. Let's get ready for our errands. The dismissal was clear. I watched them go, Ethan peering at me over Jenna's shoulder with confused, sad eyes. I spent the morning alone while they ran errands. I called my brother finally, pouring out the whole story. He listened without judgment until I finished. Oh man, he said, this sounds incredibly hard. I don't know what to do, I admitted. I love them both so much, but I'm losing them. Or maybe I never really had them to begin with. That's not true. From everything you've told me over the years, you've been a wonderful father to Ethan. Jenna doesn't think so. Jenna is scared, he said gently. Fear makes people do terrible things to the ones they love. How do I fight fear? With patience, with boundaries, and with help. Is she going to therapy with you? She's being evasive about it. Then you go alone first. Work on what you can control. But Sam, don't let her erase you from Ethan's life. He needs you. After we hung up, I sat in Ethan's room looking at the drawings he'd made over the years. So many featured the 3 of us together. Stick figures holding hands surrounded by hearts and rainbows. The recent ones were different. Still the 3 of us, but with space between the figures. No more holding hands. When Jenna and Ethan returned, I was in the kitchen making lunch. Not the planned lunch from Jenna's schedule, but grilled cheese sandwiches cut into stars and homemade tomato soup. Ethan's favorite comfort meal. Smells good, Ethan said, then caught himself looking at Jenna. We plan to have salads, Jenna said. Plans can change, I replied, setting Ethan's plate in front of him. Sometimes comfort food is what we need. Ethan looked at his star sandwiches with longing. Jenna sighed, but didn't protest further. We ate in relative relative silence, though I noticed Ethan savoring every bite. After lunch, Jenna announced it was time for educational activities. She'd bought workbooks, math, reading comprehension, science. On a Saturday? I asked. Maintaining academic skills is important, especially on weekends. What about the park, or a bike ride, or literally anything that isn't sitting at a table doing worksheets? Physical activity is scheduled for 3 p.m. Scheduled physical activity. I couldn't hide my disbelief. Jenna, he's not a robot to be programmed. He's a child. I'm aware of what he is, she said coldly. I'm his mother. Then act like it instead of his warden. Ethan had shrunk in his chair, workbook unopened in front of him. I immediately regretted the harsh words. You know what? I said, making a decision. I'm going to the farmer's market. Ethan, would you like to come with me? He looked at Jenna, seeking permission. She stared at me for a long moment. The workbooks will be here when we get back, I added. 1 hour, that's all. Please, Mommy, Ethan whispered. Something in his small voice must have reached her because she nodded stiffly. 1 hour. Stay together. Call if anything happens. Ethan jumped up, excitement breaking through his careful composure. I'll get my shoes. As he ran off, Jenna grabbed my arm. If anything happens to him, nothing will happen, I said firmly. We're going to buy flowers and maybe some fresh strawberries. That's all. You don't know. I know that he's been dying inside trying to be perfect for you. I know that he's 7 years old and should be excited about flowers without worrying they'll trigger theoretical allergies. I know that I love him and would never let anything happen to him. That has to be enough. She released my arm, but the worry in her eyes remained. The farmer's market was everything Ethan needed. He practically vibrated with excitement, pointing out colorful vegetables, inhaling the scent of fresh herbs, marveling at homemade soaps and candles. When we reached the flower stand, his whole face lit up. Sunflowers, he breathed. They're even bigger than last week. The vendor, recognizing us from previous visits, smiled. I saved the best ones for my favorite customer. Ethan beamed, carefully selecting 5 huge sunflowers. As I paid, he hugged them gently, face buried in the golden petals. Thank you, Sam, he whispered. They're perfect. We wandered the market, Ethan chattering nonstop about school, his friends, a book he wanted to read. This was the Ethan I knew, the one who'd been hiding under layers of careful behavior. Sam, he said suddenly, are you and Mommy going to get divorced? The question hit me like a physical blow. I knelt beside him, taking his free hand. Why would you ask that, buddy? Benji's parents got divorced. He said they fought a lot first about him. Oh, Ethan, your Mommy and I are going through a tough time, but it's not about you. It's about grown-up stuff that we need to work on. Is it because I broke my arm? Mommy's been different since then. My heart ached. This perceptive child had noticed everything. No, baby, none of this is your fault. Sometimes adults get scared and don't handle it well, but that's for us to fix, not you. He nodded solemnly. I like when you and Mommy are happy together, like before. Me too, I admitted, and I'm going to try really hard to get back to that. Promise? I pulled him into a hug, careful not to crush the sunflowers. I promised to try my very best. We returned home to find Jenna pacing the living room, phone in hand. You're 15 minutes late, she said. The market was busy. We got caught up looking at everything. Ethan held up his sunflowers proudly. Look, Mommy, aren't they beautiful? Her face softened slightly. They're very nice, sweetheart. Let's put them in water. As Ethan arranged his flowers in a vase, chattering about each one, I saw Jenna watching him. For a moment, her guard dropped, and I glimpsed the mother who used to delight in his enthusiasm. That evening, after Ethan was in bed, following the strict routine, of course, Jenna found me on the back porch. He was happy today, she said quietly. He was. That's all I want, Jenna, for him to be happy. She sat beside me, maintaining careful distance. I know I've been difficult. I waited, not trusting myself to speak. When he broke his arm, all I could think about was how I'd failed to protect him, how I'd let him do something dangerous. It brought back everything from before, but he was at gymnastics practice with qualified instructors. Kids fall sometimes. I know that logically, but logic doesn't matter when your child is hurt. All I could think was that I'd been careless, she trailed off. Like your ex, I finished. She nodded. And then you told me to relax, that I couldn't control everything, and it felt like you were minimizing it, like you didn't understand how serious it was. I was trying to comfort you, to remind you that accidents happen, and Ethan was going to be okay. I know that now, but in the moment, it felt like you were being cavalier with his safety. And once that thought took root, I started seeing carelessness everywhere. In me, in everyone, but especially you, because you're the one I'm trusting with him when I'm not there. I turned to face her. Do you understand how that feels to go from being his father to being someone you can't trust overnight? I'm sorry, she said, and I could hear the genuine regret. I know I've hurt you. You've hurt Ethan too, haven't you? He asked me today if we're getting divorced. He thinks it's his fault you've changed. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. God, I never wanted. I'm supposed to be protecting him. You can't protect him from yourself, Jenna. From your fear. He's trying so hard to be perfect for you that he's disappearing. I see that now. Today. Watching him with those sunflowers. When did he stop asking for things? When did he stop being excited about little pleasures? When you started treating every joy as a potential danger. We sat in silence, the weight of the past month settling between us. I'll go to therapy, she said finally. Individual and couples, whatever it takes. Really, I can't keep living like this. We can't keep living like this. Ethan deserves better. He deserves both his parents, I said. Working together, trusting each other. I want that. I just don't know how to turn off the fear. That's what therapy is for, to help you process what happened before and separate it from what's happening now. She reached for my hand tentatively. Can you forgive me for all of it? I'm trying, I said honestly, but I need to see change, not just hear promises. Fair enough. We stayed on the porch until the air grew cool, not talking, just sitting with the possibility of healing between us. The following week passed in a strange limbo. Jenna attended her first individual therapy session on Tuesday, returning home quieter than usual. She didn't share details, just nodded when I asked if it went okay. Ethan noticed the shift in energy, watching us both with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. Wednesday morning, I found Jenna in Ethan's room before dawn, sitting on the floor surrounded by his drawings. The sunflowers from the farmer's market stood proudly on his dresser, petals still vibrant. She held the picture he'd drawn of our weekend together, tracing the stick figures with one finger. I didn't announce myself, just watched as she carefully sorted through months of artwork. There were so many featuring just her and Ethan from before I came along, then the gradual inclusion of a third figure, me. The progression was clear. Separate figures at first, then closer, then holding hands. The recent ones showed us apart again. Ethan stirred in his bed, and Jenna quickly set the drawings aside. I retreated before either noticed me. That afternoon, I picked Ethan up from school without asking permission. Jenna's therapy appointment ran until 4:30, and I wasn't going to leave him waiting. He bounced into the car with his usual after-school energy, chattering about a science project on butterflies. Can we stop at the library? He asked. I need books with pictures for my poster. At the library, Ethan dove into research with enthusiasm. He pulled book after book, exclaiming over monarch migration patterns and chrysalis formations. I helped him carry the stack to a table where he spread everything out with careful organization. Sam, he looked up from a particularly colorful page. Do you think Mommy will let me raise butterflies? My teacher says we can order caterpillars online. The question hurt. Not whether we could raise butterflies, but whether Jenna would allow it. I think that sounds like an amazing project, I said carefully. We can ask her together. He nodded, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. We checked out 6 books, and Ethan hugged them to his chest the whole drive home. Jenna was already there when we arrived, pacing the living room. Her face went through several emotions when she saw us. Relief, anger, something that might have been fear. Where were you? Her voice was controlled, but I heard the edge. Library, Ethan piped up, showing his books. For my butterfly project. She looked at me over his head. I met her gaze steadily. His teacher assigned it yesterday. He needed research materials. Ethan spread the books on the coffee table, pulling me down beside him to look. See, Sam, this one shows the whole life cycle, and this one has instructions for building a butterfly habitat. Jenna remained standing, watching us. Ethan, caught up in his excitement, didn't notice her tension. He flipped through pages, pointing out different species, explaining what he'd learned about metamorphosis. Can we order caterpillars, Mommy? He asked, looking up at her with hopeful eyes. Mrs. Peterson says it's very educational. We'd release them when they become butterflies. I watched Jenna struggle. The old her would have immediately listed concerns, potential diseases, the responsibility. What if they died? But something in Ethan's expression, or maybe something from therapy, held her back. Let me research it, she said finally. We need to make sure we do it properly. Ethan's face fell slightly at the non-answer, but he nodded. Okay, Mommy. After dinner, which Jenna let me help prepare without comment, Ethan worked on his project outline while we cleaned up. The domesticity felt fragile, like blown glass that might shatter at any moment. How was therapy? I asked quietly, handing her dishes to dry. She took a long time to answer. Hard. Dr. Morrison wants me to write down every time I feel the need to control something with Ethan, to identify the trigger and the fear behind it. That sounds helpful. She set down the plate she was drying. This morning I spent 10 minutes debating whether his socks matched closely enough. 10 minutes, Sam, over socks. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just listened. She asked me what I was afraid would happen if his socks didn't match, and I couldn't answer because nothing would happen. Nothing. But in the moment, it felt critical. Ethan called from the living room asking how to spell metamorphosis. Jenna started to go, but I touched her arm. Let me, I said, finish what you were saying. She nodded, and I went to help Ethan while she continued drying dishes. It was a small thing, but it felt like progress. Thursday brought our first couples therapy session. Jenna picked Ethan up from school while I met her at Dr. Lee's office. The waiting room was pleasant, but sterile, trying too hard to be calming. Jenna arrived 5 minutes late, slightly out of breath. Traffic, she explained, though I suspected she'd sat in the parking lot debating whether to come in. Dr. Lee was younger than I'd expected. With kind eyes and a direct manner, he let us settle into opposite ends of a couch before beginning. So, he said, tell me what brings you here. We talked over each other, stopped, started again. Finally, Jenna gestured for me to go first. I explained about Ethan, about the weekend that triggered everything, about feeling pushed out of my own family. Jenna listened without interrupting, her hands clenched in her lap. When it was her turn, she talked about Ethan's father. Details I'd never heard before spilled out. Finding Ethan alone in their apartment at age 3, having climbed onto the counter to reach cereal because his father had been passed out for hours. The emergency room visit when he'd gotten into bathroom chemicals. The final straw, a call call from a gas station attendant who found Ethan alone in a hot car while his father was inside buying alcohol. I got custody easily, she said, voice flat. He didn't even fight it. Signed away his rights like Ethan was an inconvenience he was glad to be rid of. Dr. Lee took notes, asking occasional questions. How old was Ethan when this happened? How long had she known about the drinking? Had she sought help for her own trauma? I thought I was fine, Jenna admitted. I had Ethan. He was safe. That's all that mattered. Then I met Sam, and he was so different, so responsible and caring. I thought I could trust again. What changed? Dr. Lee asked. Ethan broke his arm. The words came out rough. At gymnastics, a supervised activity I'd approved, and all I could think was that I'd failed again. Let my guard down, let him get hurt, and Sam's response, she glanced at me. He told me to relax, that I couldn't control everything, which was probably meant to be comforting, but it felt like minimizing, like he didn't understand the gravity of protecting Ethan. Dr. Lee finished. Exactly. We spent the rest of the session establishing ground rules for communication, identifying triggers, discussing homework. Dr. Lee gave us both journals to track our thoughts and reactions. As we left, he pulled me aside briefly. This is going to be a process, he said. Trauma doesn't heal overnight, but the fact that you're both here is significant. Friday afternoon, Ethan's teacher called, not with concerns this time, but with praise. Ethan had presented his butterfly project outline with enthusiasm, engaging the whole class. He'd even brought in one of his library books to share pictures. I wanted you to know, Mrs. Peterson said, because he mentioned he wasn't sure if he'd be allowed to actually raise the butterflies, but he was so knowledgeable and excited. It was wonderful to see. I thanked her and hung up, feeling mixed emotions, pride in Ethan's presentation, sadness that he doubted the butterfly project would happen. When Ethan got home, he was buzzing with excitement. Everyone loved my presentation. Benji wants to raise butterflies too. Mrs. Peterson said I did excellent research. That's wonderful, buddy. I pulled him into a hug. I'm so proud of you. Jenna arrived home to find us looking at butterfly habitat options online. Instead of immediately listing concerns, she sat down with us. Tell me about the project, she said to Ethan. He launched into an explanation, showing her websites, pointing out different kit options. I watched her listen, really listen, occasionally glancing at me with something like wonder. This one has a guarantee that at least 3 caterpillars will successfully transform, Ethan said, pointing to his favorite kit. And it comes with everything we need. The habitat is reusable too. What happens if one doesn't make it? Jenna asked, and I held my breath. Ethan's face grew serious. Mrs. Peterson says that's part of nature. Not every caterpillar becomes a butterfly, but that's why they send 5 to increase the chances, and we'd learn from it either way. Jenna nodded slowly. Okay, we can try it. Ethan's squeal of delight could probably be heard 3 houses away. He threw his arms around Jenna, then me, then ran to call his best friend with the news. That was hard for you, I observed quietly. Terrifying, she admitted. What if they all die? What if he's devastated? What if they transform into beautiful butterflies and bring him joy? I interrupted gently. What if this becomes a wonderful memory? What if he learns about resilience and nature and growth? She was quiet for a moment. Dr. Morrison would say I'm catastrophizing again. Are you? Probably. She managed a small smile. But I still ordered the kit with the highest success rate. I laughed, and after a moment, she joined me. It wasn't fixed. Not by a long shot, but it was something. Saturday morning arrived with Ethan bouncing on our bed at 6 a.m., too excited to sleep. The butterfly kit won't arrive for a week, Jenna reminded him, but with fondness rather than irritation. I know, but I want to set up the perfect spot for the habitat and make observation journals. And breakfast first, I said, ruffling his hair. Butterflies need well-fed scientists. He raced to the kitchen, and Jenna and I followed more slowly. She'd slept better, I noticed. The deep circles under her eyes had faded slightly. No schedule today? I asked, noting the absence of her usual weekend timeline. I thought we'd try something different. She pulled out her therapy notebook. Dr. Morrison wants me to practice flexible structure, having general plans but allowing for spontaneity. How does that work? We need to go grocery shopping at some point. Ethan has that birthday party at 2 fine, but the rest? She shrugged, and I saw how much effort that casual gesture took. We'll see how it goes. Ethan chattered through breakfast about butterfly facts he'd memorized. Did we know some butterflies taste with their feet? That they can see ultraviolet colors humans can't? That the monarch migration takes multiple generations to complete? We should plant a butterfly garden, he announced suddenly, to attract them after we release ours. Jenna tensed slightly. I saw it in her shoulders, but she took a breath, glanced at her notebook, and said, that sounds like something we could research. Ethan beamed. Can we go to the garden center today? Just to look. We'll see, Jenna said, then caught herself. Actually, yes, we can look. The morning unfolded with a rhythm we hadn't had in months. Ethan helped with grocery shopping, Jenna letting him choose some items without commenting on nutritional value. At the garden center, he dragged us through rows of plants, reading labels to find butterfly-friendly options. Milkweed for monarchs, he recited. Zinnias, cosmos, black-eyed Susans, oh, purple coneflowers. An employee overheard and stopped to talk with Ethan about butterfly gardens. Jenna stood back, watching our son engage with confidence and joy. When the employee offered to show Ethan the butterfly bush section, Jenna nodded permission without hesitation. hesitation. He's really something, I said quietly, standing beside her. He is. She paused. I've been so afraid of losing him that I've been losing him anyway, haven't I? Not losing, I corrected. Just dimming. But look at him now. Ethan was animatedly discussing plant heights and bloom times with the employee, his hands gesturing wildly as he explained his project. The brightness was returning. We didn't buy plants that day. Jenna's progress only went so far, but Ethan left with a list and a promise that we'd plan the garden together. In the car to the birthday party, he hummed happily, clutching his plant list. Sam, he said suddenly, will you help me design the garden? You're good at making things pretty. Of course, buddy. We'll make it beautiful. And Mommy can help with the measurements and making sure everything's planted right, he added, including her naturally. Jenna met my eyes in the rearview mirror. I'd like that, she said. At the birthday party, I watched Jenna struggle with letting Ethan run off with his friends. Her hand twitched toward her phone several times, probably fighting the urge to text him, though he was just in the backyard. But she resisted, engaging in small talk with other parents instead. He's doing the butterfly project too, one father said. My son hasn't stopped talking about Ethan's presentation. Apparently, he made it sound so exciting that half the class wants to raise butterflies now. Pride flickered across Jenna's face. He's been researching extensively. Kids need projects like that, another parent chimed in. Something to care for, to watch grow. Teaches responsibility. Jenna nodded and I saw her mentally noting their words. External validation helped, confirming what I'd been trying to tell her. Sunday brought rain, trapping us inside. The old Jenna would have scheduled indoor educational activities. Instead, she let Ethan build a blanket fort in the living room while we worked on butterfly garden designs at the kitchen table. What about a spiral pattern? I suggested, sketching roughly, taller plants in the center, shorter ones spiraling out. That would work, Jenna said, pulling up spacing requirements on her tablet. We'd need at least 3 FT between the larger plants. Ethan appeared from his fort, trailing blankets. Can I see? We showed him our ideas and he clapped excitedly. It's perfect. Can we add a little bench to sit and watch the butterflies? Where would it go? Jenna asked, but she was already adjusting the design to accommodate his idea. We spent the afternoon refining plans, Ethan contributing ideas while Jenna calculated square footage, and I researched complementary plants. It felt like partnership, like family. That evening, as bedtime approached, Ethan asked, can we skip a story just this once? I want to finish my observation journal cover. The old Jenna would have insisted on routine. Instead, she glanced at me, then at her therapy notebook. Just this once, she agreed, but teeth brushing is non-negotiable. Ethan hugged her fiercely. Thanks, Mommy. After he was in bed, only 15 minutes past official bedtime, Jenna and I sat on the couch, both exhausted, but oddly peaceful. Today was good, I said. It was terrifying, she corrected, but with a wry smile. Do you know how many times I wanted to insist on the schedule, to list reasons why a butterfly garden was impractical, to make him come in from the fort to do something educational? But you didn't. No, I wrote in the journal instead. Dr. Morrison will be pleased. She paused. Ethan was happy today. He was. You both were. She reached for my hand, tentative. I'm trying, Sam. I know it's not enough yet, but it's a start, I said, squeezing gently. That's all we need. A start. Monday's therapy session was individual for Jenna, but she came home looking thoughtful rather than drained. Dr. Morrison wants me to try something, she said over dinner. A trust exercise. I have to let you make all parenting decisions for one full day. I can't override or question anything unless it's genuinely dangerous. Ethan looked between us with interest. Like, what kind of decisions? Everything, Jenna said, and I heard the effort those words cost her. What you eat, when you go to bed, what activities you do, Sam decides. Cool. Ethan grinned at me. Can we have ice cream for dinner? Nice try, I laughed. But I think we'll stick with regular food. Maybe ice cream for dessert if you eat your vegetables. Jenna's shoulders relaxed slightly. I understood. She needed to see that I wouldn't go wild with freedom, that I'd still make responsible choices. We chose Wednesday for the experiment. Jenna left for work looking like she was heading to her execution, but she kissed us both goodbye and didn't leave a single instruction. The day unfolded normally. I picked Ethan up from school, approved his snack choice, apple slices with peanut butter, helped with homework, made dinner. The only deviation from Jenna's usual routine was letting Ethan help cook, which resulted in slightly messy counters, but a proud child who'd successfully made his first omelet. Can I call Mommy to tell her about the omelet? He asked. I hesitated, knowing Jenna was probably dying for updates, but also recognizing this was part of the exercise. Let's wait until she gets home. It'll be a surprise. When Jenna arrived, Ethan dragged her to the kitchen to show off his cooking skills. She listened with genuine interest, praising his technique, not mentioning the flour still dusting the counter. How was your day? I asked carefully after Ethan went to get ready for bed. Longest day of my life, she admitted. I wrote in the journal every hour, but she paused. Nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened, I confirmed. Ethan had a normal, happy day. He learned a new skill. He did his homework without complaint. He even chose to practice piano without being reminded. She nodded slowly. Dr. Morrison said the anticipation would be worse than the reality. Was it? Yes. I spent all day imagining disasters that never came. She looked at me directly. Thank you for being patient with this. With me. Thursday was Butterfly Kid arrival day. Ethan practically vibrated accelerated through school according to his teacher's amused text. When I picked him up, he bounced into the car already planning. I set up the perfect spot in my room, away from direct sunlight but still bright, and I finished my first observation journal at lunch. At home, we carefully unpacked the kit together. 5 tiny caterpillars in individual containers looking impossibly small and fragile. Ethan read the instructions aloud while I helped him set up a habitat. Jenna arrived home to find us lying on Ethan's floor, watching the caterpillars through magnifying glasses. "They're so tiny," she said, joining us on the floor. "But they'll grow," Ethan informed her seriously. "They'll eat and get 20 times bigger before they make their chrysalises. Chrysalises, not cocoons." Ethan launched into an explanation of the difference between moth cocoons and butterfly chrysalises. Jenna listened intently, and I saw her fighting, not to mention the possibility of failure. Over the next days, we fell into a new rhythm. Ethan checked his caterpillars first thing each morning, making careful observations in his journal. Jenna still struggled with control, but she wrote in her therapy journal instead of imposing rigid rules. I found my place again, no longer pushed to the periphery, but included in decisions and daily life. The first caterpillar formed its chrysalis exactly 1 week later. Ethan shrieked with excitement, dragging us both to see. "Look, it's starting, just like the book said." We watched in fascination as nature took its course. By evening, the transformation was complete. 1 pale green chrysalis hanging from the habitat lid. "How long until it becomes a butterfly?" Ethan asked. 7 to 10 days, I said, checking the guide. "Then we'll see if our patience pays off." Jenna tensed slightly at the uncertainty, but said only, "We'll watch and see." By the weekend, all 5 caterpillars had successfully formed chrysalises. Ethan documented everything, taking photos, making sketches, writing detailed notes. His teacher sent home a note praising his dedication to the project. Saturday morning, we started the butterfly garden. Jenna had ordered the plants we'd chosen, and they arrived in neat boxes. Ethan donned his gardening gloves, a new purchase he'd picked out himself, and dove in with enthusiasm. "Milkweed here," he directed, consulting our plan, "and the zinnias in a rainbow pattern." We worked together, Jenna ensuring proper spacing, me helping Ethan with the artistic arrangement, all of us getting gloriously dirty. The neighbor's cat wandered over to investigate, and Jenna didn't immediately shoo it away from Ethan. "Progress," I murmured to her. "I only thought about toxoplasmosis twice," she replied dryly. By afternoon, we had a respectable butterfly garden taking shape. Ethan stood back, dirt smudged on his cheek, beaming at our work. "It's perfect. The butterflies will love it." "They will," Jenna agreed, pulling him into a sideways hug. "You did a great job planning this." That evening, exhausted and satisfied, we had a picnic dinner in the backyard to admire our handiwork. Ethan chattered about which butterflies might visit, what flowers would bloom first, how he'd document every visitor. "Can we get a garden journal too?" he asked, "to track what butterflies come?" "I think that's a great idea," Jenna said before I could respond. "We could mount it in a weatherproof box." Ethan's eyes widened. "Really? You mean it?" "Really. This is your project. We should do it right." He hugged her fiercely, then me, then ran inside to start designing his garden journal. "That was good of you," I said quietly. "It's getting easier," she admitted, saying yes, not immediately seeing danger everywhere. "Dr. Morrison says I'm rewiring my brain, creating new pathways. How does that feel?" "Terrifying," she said, but smiled. "And freeing." Sunday brought our next couple's therapy session. Dr. Lee noted the changes immediately, how we sat closer on the couch, how Jenna reached for my hand when discussing difficult topics. "Tell me about this week," he prompted. We shared the butterfly project, the garden, the trust exercise. He asked probing questions about how each event felt, what fears arose, how we handled them. "I'm impressed," he said finally. "This is significant progress in a short time." But he looked at Jenna. "There will be setbacks. Healing isn't linear. What matters is how you handle them." "What kind of setbacks?" Jenna asked, and I heard the worry creeping back. "You might find yourself reverting to old patterns during stress. Ethan might get hurt again. Children do. Something might trigger memories of your ex-husband's negligence. The key is recognizing these moments and having strategies to cope." We spent the rest of the session developing coping strategies, code words to use when one of us noticed the other spiraling, agreement to pause discussions if they became too heated, permission to call each other out gently on problematic behaviors. Monday morning brought excitement. The first chrysalis was darkening, indicating the butterfly was nearly ready to emerge. Ethan could barely concentrate on getting ready for school. "What if it happens while I'm gone?" he worried. "I'll watch," I promised, "and take pictures if anything happens." Jenna started to suggest staying home, then caught herself. "Sam will take good care of them," she said instead. I spent the morning working from home, checking the chrysalises every hour. Just after lunch, I noticed movement in the darkest one. Within minutes, a crack appeared. I grabbed my phone, recording as a perfect painted lady butterfly slowly emerged. It was magical, watching those crumpled wings slowly expand and dry. When Ethan got home, I showed him the video. He watched it 3 times, tears of joy streaming down his face. It worked. It really worked. By evening, 2 more butterflies had emerged. Ethan sat cross-legged in front of the habitat, observing every movement, sketching in his journal. Jenna joined him, him, equally fascinated. They're so perfect, Ethan breathed. Look at the patterns on their wings. Nature is pretty amazing, Jenna agreed. Over the next 3 days, all 5 butterflies successfully emerged. Ethan documented everything, creating a presentation for school. The morning we planned to release them, he was up before dawn. It's release day, he announced, bouncing on our bed. We waited until afternoon when the day had warmed. Ethan carried the habitat carefully to his butterfly garden, Jenna and I flanking him like an honor guard. Should we say something? Ethan asked. Like a ceremony? What would you like to say? I asked. He thought for a moment. Thank you for teaching us about patience and growth and change. Fly free and be happy. One by one, he opened the habitat and coaxed the butterflies onto his finger. Each one paused, wings flexing before taking flight. The last one, the biggest, landed on a zinnia before flying away. Ethan stood between us, watching until the last butterfly disappeared. We did it, he whispered. We really did it. Jenna pulled us both close. We did. The next morning, Ethan found a monarch butterfly visiting his garden. He watched it move from flower to flower, his face glowing with quiet joy. Jenna and I stood behind him, her hand finding mine. Look, Ethan whispered. It likes the milkweed best, just like the book said. We watched together. 3 people learning to trust in transformation, in growth, in the possibility of beautiful things emerging from difficult changes. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. It was everything.